right before we hit record, we were talking about putting on shows. So you guys put on shows in Atlanta, and we're talking about doing warehouse shows. I'm really fascinated right now with this concept of like alternative venues versus like traditional clubs. I've talked to people that are doing like hip hop shows in backyards in Huntsville, Alabama. I've seen these warehouse shows now. What kind of shows do you guys do?
Yeah, so we're starting to get into more of the like official, industry official established venues in Atlanta. But the biggest event that I've been a part of is a festival we built in Atlanta called Blue Summer, and that started actually. It started out with the concept of being like a festival and kind of like a house party type of thing, just because the place that we were looking at at the time for it was like a house. But we actually ended up doing the very first one at the back of like a tattoo shop. I had this friend who worked at a tattoo shop, and they had a back event space that maybe fit about 120 people or so. And this was the first one, so we weren't expecting more than like 50, 80 people, you know what I'm saying? And just like the feedback we got from that, and just like people being able to experience something like that in that environment was great. People were saying like, yo, this is dope. This isn't back of tattoo shop. I've never seen that. So we were wanting to kind of extend that same concept to it, but also, be able to get into a venue that fit more of what we were looking for, because we were trying to take this serious. We're trying to grow it out. It's like a festival. So we ended up landing on this venue in Atlanta called The Bakery, which used to be an old bakery, and they converted it into a venue, like an art and venue space, kind of like an art collab, and then they have like different performance rooms and stuff. So we kind of just took the concept of like, yo, let's take this space that's already kind of like eclectic. It's already kind of like got its own energy and really weird. If you see the space, if you've ever been there, it's a very like weird artsy place, but it's eclectic enough that everyone feels comfortable there, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? At least for the type of shows we do, because we mainly do like rap, kind of like mixed genre shows. So the biggest thing I've kind of seen with it, between doing like, let's say, The Bakery, which is very untraditional as far as venue spaces, and then doing something like Smith's Old Bar, which is like a very historic Atlanta venue. So we've done stuff there. And it's like Smith's Old Bar, it felt more professional because it was built for that type of space. But the bakery shows were more interesting. You know what I'm saying? It fit more with the vibe. Even the layout of it just fit better with a lot of the ideas that we have for the entire event. We try to make our event very immersive. So our big thing is we want something going on all the time, so that way we're kind of directing the flow of attention, right? So our big three things are music, film, and art are our big three.
I love that.
So we would start the event out with, we have a common area space where there's vendors and there's like visual artists kind of showing up their art. Which transitioned into, there was a second room. Actually, let me back up. The bakery has like 3 different rooms. So we will get the entire venue, and the first room has the vendors, the art people. The second room has the short film screening. So we get a couple of visual artists from the scene, or just that we are familiar with through artists and stuff that we know. They come on and show off 5 to 10 minute films. They kind of do their thing, show it off. And then the people who were just in the other area are now transitioning to the film area. We try to time the film thing to end right as the music performances are getting ready to start, like right as the actual concert is starting. So like,
that's cool.
That's worked out for us, because when we're directing the flow of traffic, we're making sure people don't get bored and leave. Because especially at these smaller shows, like that's kind of the problem you run into, is people going like, oh, it says we're gonna start at 9. I've been here since 7 o'clock because I wanted to get here early, but now I'm bored, So we figure out if that's something for people to do all the time, and they're in an interesting space, it's not just your typical vinyl or those type of venues, which we like to work with, but just for like the vibe of our event, you know what I'm saying? It fits together really well. And I actually think that at least from I try to convert it into like my marketing brain and kind of apply it to what artists can do. And I'm thinking like, man, if we're seeing that people are willing to come to literally an old bakery and watch a concert, that opens up the world of what artist touring can look like, you know what I'm saying? In my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, because like now, instead of trying to get in contact with all of the venues that are, you know what I'm saying, booked out with like Live Nation acts, or booked out with these bigger acts that beat them to it, you can just go book like an art gallery, or book like, you know what I'm saying, like an Airbnb if they let you, or book
absolutely.
Like, we've been to outside concerts, you know what I'm saying? Like like we were talking about before we hopped on camera. That's been one of the cool things about Atlanta, is that so many people been active that you see so many different types about this. Like I've seen outside concerts like in the woods, concerts in warehouses, concerts in like clothing stores, like all types of stuff, man. It's like, man, I think that we're seeing it because we're in the event space. We're thinking putting events together, but I think if like artists start to realize that, it's like, I think that's, like I said, it's going to change the way touring happens. It's going to make it, I think, a lot easier for the average artist to tour. You know what I'm saying? Like, or at least the artist who has either a savvy enough team or they themselves have like the work ethic to do it, to string along those types of events, you know?
Yeah, it also saves a lot of time, right? Because I have definitely, when artists I've worked with, I've definitely spent hours and hours in the past just trying to get an email response from a venue. And it's so frustrating when you're spending so much time that could be spent better. And I love seeing these creative ways that people are doing shows now, like you said, in warehouses and bakery shops and clothing stores and art galleries. I feel like if you become creative like that and can help you book a tour faster, but also I have this thing called the 50% rule. So you should never play a venue unless you can fill at least 50% of its capacity, right? So if you play in a 200 person club, you should be able to sell at least 100 tickets, because that's how you're going to build a better relationship with the venue and get a response in the future. Because if you're only selling 20 tickets, they're like, man, this artist is a waste of time. I'm not going to work with them again. So I love this idea of like playing all these different alternative types of venues. So that's a great way you can build a tour, and also like a great introduction for the first time in a new market, right? If you've never been to Atlanta before, and you play like a clothing store and it's packed, and you probably build a deeper connection with these fans, and they're going to come to a club show next time around. I love that.
Yeah, and it looks better. It makes for more interesting content. Like you said, you don't really deal with that problem as much of like overthinking. I mean, people you thought you were going to bring out, and man, like I think I've seen Airbnb, I think, kind of push that forward by allowing like event spaces and things to rent through it. Out here, there are a lot of event space companies that you can like reach out to, and they'll hook you up with, like lofts and things like that. So, and we've actually known that have strung together like 5 to 8 city tours off of that. Like, they're like, yo, I got like, you know what I'm saying, 2 bars I could get into in one location, 3 Airbnbs in one spot, and then like an art gallery in this one city. And I'm like, man, that's cool. Like, one, that's interesting. It makes really interesting like content. You know, and then 2, like you said, like it, especially in the beginning journey, it looks better, I think, for those really intimate shows to be in those types of locations, because really, really official venues don't set like a vibe, in my opinion. Like unless you kind of come in and you put your artistic eye to the venue, but most venues, if you just let them be the way they are, they're not really. They're not really interesting unless you're going to like the really big venues. Then they're expensive. You know what I'm saying? Like, so then you're playing that game. But doing it in these like one-off places where it's like there's something else during this other time, like they already have a certain aesthetic there. They already have a certain style. You just need to be the music equipment. You know what I'm saying? Boom, just like that. You got a venue. Yeah,
exactly. And if you give people a good experience, they're gonna like brag about how awesome that show was in a clothing store, art gallery. Like, they're not gonna say, oh, there's only 20 people there. They're going to say it was packed or nobody else could get in. Like, so they're going to talk about the capacity of it. They're just going to talk about how cool it was. Which is such a great way for, as you said, for content and brand building. I love that. Live the life you love.